So the first myth that's going to be talked about, that is something that people get wrong when they're starting out FBA on Amazon, is that you need a ton of money to start. You need 5, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 grand to start. And this is just not true. You don't need that amount of money. You don't need a large amount of capital to start. But what you have to understand is the amount of capital that you do start, whether it's credit or it's liquid, is going to affect how much you can actually profit, right? So if you're starting with $1,000, $2,000, don't expect to be making $10,000 a month. That's ridiculous, guys. You got to be realistic about how business works, right? A lot of people will, tell you that you're going to make crazy margins, and it's just, that's not realistic. And if you're going to get into business, you have to understand what your limitations are, especially when you're talking about getting into a business that is wholesale, where you're buying things at a lower cost and selling them at a higher margin. So as long as you go in with the expectation that you're not going to be, making these incredibly high margins when you're starting small, then you'll be okay, because you can manage your expectations. So you don't need an infinite amount of money to start. You don't need a large amount of money to start. You can literally start with $500 to $1,000. Buy cheaper inventory from a good supplier and get it sent in and sold. Amazon's going to pay you back, and you repeat that process again, right? So this big myth about how you need all this money to start. Now, if you're talking about paying an agency or some sort of service to run the account for you, manage it, create the supplier relationships, vendor relationships, all that stuff, that's a whole different ballgame, right? That's not the same as you just starting the business on your own. You can go and open up your LLC, start your Amazon account, and get products in your store for literally less than $1,000. You can totally do that. If you guys need some guidance on that, of course, you can just hit me up on Instagram, let me know. I can probably walk you through what the basics of that are, but you can totally do that. That's myth number one. Myth number two is that you are going to make this massive amount of money, tons of money. You're going to get rich in 3 to 6 months, and you can buy your Bugatti, buy your Lambo, and get a mansion in Miami, right? That is just not true at all, okay? And I'll be the first one to tell you, I've been selling on Amazon close to 8-9 years now, and it took a lot of work to get to where I am now, a lot of ups and downs. So you got to understand that Amazon, especially wholesale, just like any other business, it is a real business, right? You're dealing with logistics, you're dealing with shipping, you're dealing with manufacturers, you're dealing with delays, you're dealing with customers, right? People buying things, people returning things. All these things are real factors that you have to consider into your business. You have real costs, right? You're not going to get rich overnight. I mean, most businesses aren't even profitable their first 2 to 3 years, right? Most businesses aren't. It's just what we see on social media is that you're going to get rich and you're going to be profitable very quickly. Guys, if you're starting an Amazon business, and this goes to even some of our clients that we have, don't even expect to be profitable the first year, right? A lot of people can be profitable, right? But just go into the expectation that at least your first 6 months is about understanding and growing the business, growing the account on Amazon. You're making an investment into your future, into your business, right? So just appreciate the journey that it's going to take you on. It's going to teach you about patience. It's going to teach you about problem solving. It's going to teach you about, unlocking other areas in business that you never even knew that you had the capability of doing. But you have to be able to understand that it's a process, right? You can't control everything around you, right? You can't control how quickly your vendor ships out. You can't control whether you get accepted as some suppliers or not, right? Maybe they want to see you in business longer, right? So all of these things are going to affect how quickly you can become profitable. Now, that's not to say that some people can't do it quickly, right? If you have the right connections, you have the right amount of capital, and you know exactly what to do, you can shave that time dramatically, right? But we're assuming you're coming into business, and as long as you have the mentality that it's a real business and you're going to grow it over time, there's really few things that are going to disappoint you, okay? So you're not going to get rich quick overnight. It's a process, at least bare minimum 6 months to get the hang of how the business works and how it operates, right? So that's a super important thing. A lot of people think they could just buy an Amazon course and get rich, and they can quit their day job. And guys, that's just not true, okay? And don't fall into that trap, because I've been around long enough and I've seen it happen to a lot of people, right? They fall in for these ads, or they buy some program that tells them they're going to be rich, and they get slapped in the face with reality on how a real business runs. Anybody who's running any sort of real business that's made any money will tell you it's not easy. It takes time. There's going to be setbacks. That's just the way that it is, guys. There's no free lunch, okay? The last myth that I want to cover, that this is super common, is that it's too saturated, right? There's too many Amazon sellers, there's too many people selling the same products, there's too much competition, there's not enough money to be made, right? And this is just absolute crap, okay? It's not true at all. Competition, the only time that you're gonna have to worry about competition is if you're getting into the wrong niche. If you're going into a highly competitive niche, you only really have a couple options. Either you surpass your competition and offer so much more value in whatever product that you're picking, or whatever category, you beat everybody in price, then you separate yourself from the competition, right? So competition only happens in the areas where you're competing with everybody else at the same level. Competition doesn't happen when you're 50 levels above everybody else. There's nothing there to compete with. If you're providing more value than everybody else, then you're not going to have competition. So this is really about picking your products correctly. If you pick your products correctly, you're going to have an audience where you're not going to have a lot of competition. Yes, there's a lot of sellers, there's a lot of noise, right? But there's also a lot of really, really easy products to go after, where as long as you have the right connection with the right suppliers and the right vendors, you can get plugged in right into where people are looking to buy that product. There's literally millions of products, and I think Amazon did over $700 billion in transactions, something ridiculous like that in the past year. There's over 300 million buyers and going up every single day. It's not saturated, guys. If everybody jumps on one listing to sell the same product, yes, everybody who's selling at that price, you're gonna have a lot of competition, right? So what do you have to do? Either get a better price so you can knock the competition out of the water, or pick a different category, pick a different product. There's so many other things that you could do to separate yourself from the competition. Honestly, competition, saying that's too saturated is honestly a cop-out, and anybody who does that, that's fine. You're adding less sellers to the pool, right? So there's so much opportunity to be made on these marketplaces, not just Amazon. We're talking about Walmart, even eBay, and even Shopify. Shopify would be a perfect example of this, because you have to generate your own traffic, right? And if you're generating your own traffic, you don't have competition, right? So overall, I'm not going to be naive and say that it's 100%, there's nobody you're competing with, right? You're always going to be competing with somebody, yes, but there's so many different categories that you can find products in that competition really isn't going to be the biggest issue that you have, and it damn well sure isn't going to be an issue to stop you from starting the business, right? So all those three things are the main things that I've heard over the years, that you need all this money to start, and that you're going to get rich overnight, you're going to be super profitable, you can leave your job in 6 months, and that you can't start because there's too many sellers, right? There's millions of sellers, right? So all those three things are nonsense. If you just put your foot down, either have somebody do and run the account for you, or you just learn it yourself. All the information is out there. Pay a mentor to do it. Literally the information is out there for you to absorb and for you to apply it. It's what I did when I first started, and I learned from literally everywhere. So that's really as simple as it is, everybody. Hopefully you guys got some value out of this. If you guys want to know more tips about how we sell on Amazon, how I started what I did, just let me know. Shoot me a message on Instagram, leave a comment in the description below, comment section. If you guys need me to talk about something specific, let me know. Happy to make more of these, but try to make this one short, and hopefully you guys got a ton of value from that, and I'll see you guys on the next video.